Hello, everyone, and welcome back to True North EV, the podcast all about driving electric vehicles here in Canada. I'm your host, James, and today we're tackling a topic that I think a lot of people get hung up when they're considering going electric: choosing the right EV for your needs. You know, there's this misconception out there that everyone needs a vehicle that can travel 1,000 kilometers on a single charge, or that you have to go all in with a pure electric vehicle right from the start. I recommend it, but sometimes it's just not possible, especially here in Canada when we got those northern communities, when we got just some people just want to feel comfortable with this transition. So today, we're going to talk about how to actually match an EV to your lifestyle, why plug-in hybrids might be the perfect stepping stone for many people, and how to navigate the sometimes confusing world of EV incentives here in Canada. So, let's get started. Alright, let's start with the basics. Before you even look at a single vehicle, you need to ask yourself, what do I actually need? Here's the thing. The average Canadian drives about 15,000 kilometers per year. Break that down, and we're looking at roughly 40 kilometers per day. Now, I know that's an average, and your mileage may vary, literally. But for most people, your daily driving is pretty routine. You're going to work, running errands, maybe dropping the kids off at hockey, or heading to the grocery store. So let's think about this realistically. Do you need a vehicle that can go 5, 6, or even 1,000 kilometers on a charge? For your daily driving, probably not. Most modern EVs and plug-in hybrids can handle that 40 kilometer daily average with plenty of range to spare. Now, I'm not saying range doesn't matter, especially here in Canada, where we deal with cold winters that can impact battery performance. A vehicle rated for 250 kilometers in ideal conditions might give you 150, 180 kilometers in a Manitoba or Saskatchewan winter. It all depends how warm you want the vehicle to be. But even with that reduction, you're still covering your daily needs for most people. The real question you need to ask yourself is, how often do I take long road trips? And when I do, what's my tolerance for planning charging stops? If you're road tripping from Toronto to Thunder Bay several times a month, yeah, you might want to look at longer range options. But if you're taking 1 or 2 long trips per year, that's a different calculation entirely. Now, let's talk about plug-in hybrids, or PHEVs, as you'll hear them called. I think these vehicles are incredibly underrated, especially for Canadians who are nervous about making that full jump to electric. A plug-in hybrid gives you the best of both worlds. You've got an electric motor and battery that can typically handle 40 to 80 kilometers of pure electric driving. And then you got a gasoline engine as a backup. For a lot of Canadians, this means you're doing 80 to 90% of your daily driving on electricity. But you've still got that gas engine for longer trips or for those really cold prairie winters when you want that extra peace of mind. Or if you're going up north where there's not as many chargers available. Now, let me give you real-world examples of popular PHEVs available in Canada. The Toyota RAV4 Prime offers about 68 kilometers of range. That's enough to cover most daily commutes entirely on electricity. But you've got a reliable gas engine for those trips to the cottage or across provinces. There is usually a 2-year wait on these, and the dealerships don't seem too enthusiastic to sell them. So, be prepared. The Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV gives you around 61 kilometers of electric range in a spacious 3-row SUV. Some of the older ones are 2 rows, so between 5 and 7 seater. Perfect for Canadian families who need that cargo space and seating. They also come with a 10-year warranty, so a great peace of mind. Or maybe you want something a bit more fun. The Jeep Wrangler 4xe combines off-road capability with about 35 kilometers of electric range. Not the longest electric range, but for someone who uses the vehicle for both daily driving and weekend adventures, it could be perfect. Here's what I love about PHEVs for the Canadian market. You're getting your feet wet with electric driving without the range anxiety. You're learning about charging, about how electric motors deliver power, and you're dramatically reducing your gas consumption and emissions. And here's a bonus. Many people who start with a PHEV find that they use way less gas than they expected, and their next vehicle ends up being a full battery electric vehicle, BEV, because they realize they didn't need that gas engine as much as they thought. Now, PHEVs aren't perfect. They're more mechanically complex because you've got both an electric drivetrain and a gas engine to maintain. They're typically more expensive than a comparable gas vehicle. But for many Canadians, especially those without easy access to charging infrastructure or those who regularly drive long distances, they're an excellent bridge technology. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. Vehicle selection in Canada is limited. If you're watching the EV market in Europe or other countries, you're seeing all these amazing vehicles being announced. And then you come to Canada and where are they? We get a fraction of the models available elsewhere. And the ones we do get often come from with a long wait time and limited inventory, although it is getting better. As of right now, Canadians have access to maybe 60 to 70 different EVs, plug-in hybrids. Although it is getting better, but it is still slower, depending on your province. That sounds like a lot until you realize the EU market has significantly more options, and many manufacturers prioritize larger markets over ours. Why is this? Well, a few reasons. Canada's a smaller market population-wise. Our cold climate means manufacturers need to do additional testing and validation. Our bilingual labeling requirements add cost. And frankly, some manufacturers just don't see Canada as a priority market, which is frustrating. Although we do have some of the Chinese manufacturers that hopefully will be able to come in soon. But here's what you can do. Look at what's actually available in your province. And I say province specifically because not all vehicles are sold nationwide. Some manufacturers only sell in certain provinces, usually starting with BC, Quebec, and Ontario, where provincial incentives and demand are strongest. Check out dealerships' websites, but also, and this is important, actually call or visit dealerships. I found that online inventory doesn't always reflect what's coming or what can be ordered. Talk to sales staff who specialize in EVs. Join local EV groups like the Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association, which you can find at manitobaev.ca, where real owners can tell you what's actually available and what their experience has been getting their vehicle and how the vehicle actually is in the climate you're in. So in Manitoba, how the vehicle actually handles the cold. Also, don't discount used EVs. The used EV market in Canada is growing, and you can find some great deals on vehicles that have still plenty of life left in them and warranty. Yes, batteries degrade over time, but modern EVs are lasting much longer than early predictions suggested. Many vehicles from 2018-2020 still have 90% or more of their original battery capacity. If you're interested in learning more about the used EV market, I actually did a whole episode back in July called Used EVs in Canada, Buying Tips, Depreciation, and Hidden Gems, where we dive deep into what to look for, how to check batteries' health, which models hold their value, and where to find the best deals. I'll link that episode in the show notes, but definitely check it out if you're considering going a used route. Now, let's talk money, specifically incentives, because let's be honest, EVs are still more expensive upfront than comparable gas vehicles. And these incentives can make a real difference in affordability, although the prices are quickly getting to be the same. Starting at the federal level, we need to talk about the IZEV program. That's incentive for zero emission vehicles. And here's where I need to give you an important update. As of January 2025, the federal IZEV program has been paused. That's right, the program that had been providing up to $5,000 for battery electric vehicles and $2,500 for plug-in hybrids since 2019 is no longer available for new purchases. This is obviously disappointing news for anyone who was planning to take advantage of that federal rebate. Now, we have heard that they are bringing it back, but we don't know when or if they actually will, because that was about 6 months ago. They had mentioned that they are. What does that mean for you? Well, it makes provincial incentives even more important. And it also means you need to sharpen your pencil when it comes to the total cost of ownership. Without the federal rebate, the upfront price difference between an EV and gas vehicle is larger. Not a whole lot. They're getting quite close now. So you really need to factor in your fuel savings, maintenance savings, and any provincial incentives that still might be available. I'll be honest with you. This is frustrating. Canada has committed to EV adoption targets, and pausing the main federal incentive program doesn't help achieve those goals, especially since we still subsidize the fossil fuel industry here in Canada. But it's the reality we're dealing with right now. So let's focus on what incentives are still available. So we got the federal programs that are still available are the business tax incentive. So Canadian organizations and businesses can still benefit from an enhanced first-year capital cost allowance on the purchase of an eligible zero-emission vehicle. If you're self-employed or run a business, this could be significant for you. There is the IMHZEV program. If you're running a business, buying medium or heavy-duty commercial vehicles, think trucks, cargo vans, shuttles, you can get up to $200,000 at the point of sale. That is for commercial vehicles, not personal vehicles, but it's worth knowing about. So think the Chevy Bright Drop. Think the Ford Transit Connect. And then think of the semi trucks. There's a few semi trucks. There's a few 5-ton electric trucks out there. So those would be available for those companies to start purchasing. The good news is that several provinces still offer their own EV incentives. And depending on where you live, these can be substantial. Let's break it down by province. I'm going to give you the most current information as of 2025. So BC has one of the most generous programs in Canada. Through their Clean BC Go Electric program, you can get up to $4,000 for a new battery electric or hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. You could get up to $2,000 for a new plug-in hybrid. These amounts vary by income level. There are MSRP caps, so cars, wagons, SUVs must be under $50,000, while minivans, pickup trucks, and vans must be under $70,000. BC also has the Scrap It program, where you can get additional incentives when you scrap your old gas vehicle, but I don't know if that's still going on. BC also has excellent charging incentives, which we'll talk about in a bit. Quebec continues to be a leader in EV adoption with their updated Rouler Vert program. I'm sure I've butchered that and I apologize. As of April 2025, so up to $4,000 for new BEVs or fuel cell vehicles with MSRPs under $65,000. $1,000 to $2,000 for new BEVs with MSRPs under $65,000. And that amount, it depends on the battery capacity. $2,000 for eligible used battery electric vehicles purchased from a licensed Quebec dealer, and up to $1,000 for new electric motorcycles. So think of the zero electric bikes. Quebec is really committed to EVs, and it shows in their adoption rates. Manitoba, and this is important for those of us right here, Manitoba does have an EV incentive program. Here's the current breakdown. For new EVs, up to $4,000 on purchase or $1,000 to $4,000 on lease of eligible new EVs. That $1,000 to $4,000 depends on how long the lease is. MSRP must be $70,000 or less. Vehicles must be purchased through a Manitoba dealership. And it's an important note that Teslas and Chinese manufactured EVs purchased after March 19th, 2025 are not eligible. For used EVs, up to $2,500 on purchase of eligible pre-owned EVs. Purchase price must be, again, $70,000 or less. Vehicle must be purchased through a Manitoba dealership. And the same exclusions apply. No Teslas or Chinese manufactured EVs purchased after March 19th, 2025. PEI has a very generous program with some unique features. So up to $5,750 for new BEVs. Up to $3,250 for new PHEVs. Same amounts available for used EVs. So again, up to $5,750 for used BEVs, up to $3,250 for used PHEVs. That's awesome. And purchase price must be under $70,000 for used vehicles. Note, Teslas are not eligible after March 25th, 2025. New Brunswick. I need to give an important note here. The New Brunswick EV rebate ended on July 1st, 2025, but their program that was offered had up to $5,000 for new BEVs and PHEVs, and the used vehicle rebate of up to $2,500. And they offered the home charging station rebate. If you're in New Brunswick, I'd recommend checking periodically to see if any new programs are introduced. But as of now, there's no provincial purchase incentive. Yukon. The Yukon offers up to $5,000 for new BEVs, fuel cell vehicles, or PHEVs with 50 plus kilometer electric range. I think that's a perfect way of doing it. Putting that the range as the holding factor just forces people to actually look at how many kilometers. So you're getting that higher mileage, higher kilometer for the plug-in hybrids. $3,000 for new PHEVs with less than 50 kilometer range. 50 kilometer electric range. So these are all just the electric ranges. Up to $1,500 covering 100% of shipping costs for importing a used zero emission vehicle. This is huge for the Yukon, where shipping costs are significant. Northwest Territories has some programs particularly focused on charging infrastructure, which I'll mention in the charging section. So what about Ontario, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and the other provinces? Unfortunately, they don't currently have a provincial EV purchase incentive. Ontario used to have a program, but canceled it back in 2018. However, don't lose hope entirely. Keep checking because these programs can change, especially as provincial governments change or as pressure mounts to meet climate goals. Even without purchase incentives, some provinces offer other benefits like reduced electricity rates for overnight charging, HOV lane access for EVs, even with a single occupant, or reduced registration fees. Check with your province's transportation website for details. Now, even if your province doesn't offer rebates on vehicle purchases, there might be help available for installing a home charging station. And this is actually a big deal. Most EV owners do the majority of their charging at home overnight. So having a level 2 home charger, like the 240 volt charger, like your dryer outlet, is really convenient. But installation can cost anywhere from $500 to $2,500 or more, depending on your electrical panel, how far the electrician needs to run wiring, and whether you need any panel upgrades. Here's where you might find help. In British Columbia, they have the excellent home charging support, which is for single family homes, duplexes, semi-detached. You can get up to 50% back, up to a maximum of $350 on the installation of a level 2 home charger. Important note, Tesla products became ineligible as of March 12, 2025. Multi-unit residential buildings, apartments, condos, townhomes. This is really comprehensive in BC. You have a couple different programs going on for that in BC. You got the EV Ready plan, up to 75%, maximum $3,000 for creating an EV Ready plan. EV Ready infrastructure, up to 50%, maximum $600 per stall, up to a total of $120,000 for electrical upgrades. And then you have the EV charger rebate. So up to 50%, up to a maximum of $2,000 per charger, and $14,000 per complex. Dual port chargers count as 2 chargers. You got the workplace charging in BC. Businesses can get up to 50%, maximum $2,000 per charger, $14,000 per site. They can apply for rebates up to 4 workplace sites for a total of up to $56,000. You got the Indigenous communities in BC. They offer up to 75% of costs per charging station. They're eligible for single-family homes, condos, apartments, and workplaces. Quebec, with the strong charging support, home charging up to $600 to purchase and install an eligible level 2 home charging station. For the multi-unit residential buildings, you get up to $5,000 per charger or 50% of eligible costs for multi-unit residential buildings. Here in Manitoba, we got the Manitoba Hydro Home Energy Efficiency Loans. Level 2 home chargers are eligible for financing, maximum financing of $3,000 per EV charger. This isn't a rebate, but it is 0% financing, which helps with the upfront costs. Yukon, homeowners can receive up to 50% of costs, maximum $1,500 for purchase and installation of a level 2 charger. Eligible for single detached homes, duplexes, triplexes, and mobile homes. Just to note, Tesla chargers are not eligible as of April 3rd, 2025. Northwest Territories, they offer a rebate of up to $500 on the purchase and installation of a level 2 home EV charger. Nova Scotia, multi-unit residential building charging, up to 50% of installation costs for EV charging infrastructure on multi-unit residential buildings, including EV Ready, planning, and installation. Alberta. While Alberta doesn't have consumer EV purchase incentives, businesses, condos, corporations, Indigenous communities, industry associations, schools, municipalities, and nonprofits can receive up to 46% of total project costs, maximum of $100,000 per location for level 2 and level 3 charging stations through the EV charging program. Also, don't forget to look at workplace charging. Some employers are installing charging stations and offering free or reduced cost charging as an employee benefit. If your workplace doesn't have charging yet, you might want to talk to your HR department about it. There are sometimes business incentives available for commercial charging infrastructure. Now, beyond government incentives, don't overlook what the manufacturers themselves are offering. In the current market, especially with the federal incentives paused, manufacturers are getting creative to keep EV sales moving. You might find cash rebate or bonuses. Some manufacturers are offering their own cash incentives on top of any government program, sometimes several $1,000s. You can find the low or 0% financing, which is huge. If you're financing your EV, getting 0% or 0.99% interest instead of 5 to 7% can save you thousands over the life of your loan. I've seen manufacturers offer 0% financing for up to 84 months on certain EV models. Run the numbers. Sometimes a manufacturer discount or better financing rate is worth more than a government rebate. Free home charger installations. Some manufacturers are throwing in a level 2 home charger and covering installation costs up to a certain amount. Given that installation can cost $1,000 to $2,000, this is a real value add. Free charging credits. Manufacturers like Tesla, Ford, and others have offered free charging credits on their network. Maybe it's unlimited charging for a year or a certain dollar amount of charging credits. If you road trip regularly, this can add real value. If you don't road trip regularly, this might be something that isn't a big deal for you, and it's being oversold by the salespeople. Extended warranties. Some manufacturers are offering extended battery warranties or comprehensive vehicle warranties to give buyers peace of mind about long-term reliability. Now, here's my advice. Don't take the sticker price at face value. When you're shopping, ask about current manufacturer incentives, financing rates available, any bundled charging equipment or installation, loyalty programs if you're already driving one of their vehicles, fleet or corporate programs if you're self-employed or own a business. Also, timing matters. Manufacturers often push harder at certain times of the year, end of quarter, end of model year, or when they're trying to clear inventory for new models. If you're flexible on timing, you might save significantly. And here's something specific to Canada. Sometimes US-based manufacturers offer different incentives in the Canadian market. So don't assume what you see on American EV forums applies here. Always check the Canadian manufacturer website or talk to Canadian dealerships. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Let's bring it all together and talk about how to actually make your decision. Step 1, know your driving reality. Sit down and really analyze your driving. Look at your actual mileage over the past year. How far is your daily commute? How often do you take long road trips? Be honest with yourself. Don't buy for the one trip per year to Vancouver if 99% of your driving is within 50 kilometers of home. Identify your must-haves. What do you actually need in a vehicle? Seating capacity, cargo space, towing capability. Do you need it? Ground clearance for our winters. All-wheel drives, which seems to be really important for many Canadians. Now, step 3. Set your budget. Figure out what you can actually afford, factoring in purchase price minus any incentives you qualify for, financing costs, insurance. Sometimes EVs are cheaper to insure, sometimes more expensive. Here in Manitoba, it doesn't seem to matter. It's more on the price of the vehicle. Home charging installation, if it's needed. Your projected fuel savings, that's a huge consideration. And reduce maintenance costs. Here's a reality check on costs. Yes, EVs cost more upfront, but let's talk total cost of ownership. If you're driving 15,000 kilometers per year in a gas vehicle, getting 9 liters per 100 kilometers at $1.60 a liter for gas, you're spending about $2,160 per year on fuel. An EV using 20 kilowatts for every 100 kilometers at Manitoba's residential electricity rate of 10 cents a kilowatt, you're looking at around $300 per year for home charging. That's nearly $2,000 per year in savings. Over 5 years, that's $10,000 in fuel savings alone. Plus, EVs need way less maintenance, no oil changes, no transmission fluid, no exhaust system repairs. Brake pads last way longer thanks to regenerative braking. Those savings add up. Step 4. Match vehicles to your needs and budget. Now, look at what's actually available in Canada that meets your needs and budget. Make a short list of 3 to 5 vehicles. Consider both BEVs and FEVs based on your driving patterns. Step 5. Test drive and talk to owners. This is critical. Test drive your short list. And I mean really test drive them. Ask to take the vehicle for an hour. Drive it on the highway, in the city, test the features, see how it handles in conditions similar to what you'll actually experience. And talk to actual owners. Join Facebook groups, check out forums, and connect with local EV associations like the Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association. Real owners will tell you things dealerships won't. About real-world range in winter, about charging experiences, about reliability issues, about what they love and what drives them crazy. Step 6, run the numbers one more time. Before you sign anything, run the complete numbers. Purchase price minus all applicable rebates and incentives, provincial, municipal, manufacturer, plus financing costs over the term, plus insurance difference compared to your current vehicle, plus home charging installation if needed, minus projected fuel savings over 5 years, minus projected maintenance savings. Consider resale value. EV's resale market is still evolving in Canada. Step 7. Consider leasing. Here's something worth mentioning. Leasing can be a smart move for your first EV, especially in this rapidly evolving market. EV technology is improving quickly. Charging infrastructure is expanding, and battery costs are coming down. Leasing for 3 to 4 years lets you get into an EV now, learn the ropes, and then you're not locked into the technology. When your lease is up, you can upgrade to whatever's available then, likely with better range, better features, and maybe a better incentive. Here's something I really want to emphasize, and it's something I think that gets lost in a lot of EV discussions. You don't have to go all in immediately, and that's perfectly okay. If a full battery electric vehicle doesn't make sense for you right now, maybe you live in a rural area with limited charging infrastructure, maybe you regularly drive long distances for work, maybe you just aren't comfortable with the technology, yet a plug-in hybrid might be the perfect solution. And you know what? That's a win. If you're doing 70 to 80% of your driving on electricity with a FEV, you're making a real impact. You're reducing emissions, you're learning about electric driving, and you're supporting the market that will eventually bring more options to Canada. Or maybe even a FEV isn't right for you yet. Maybe you need to wait another year or two for more models to come to market, for charging infrastructure to expand, for prices to come down, or for incentives to improve. That's okay too. Don't let anyone shame you into a purchase that doesn't make sense for your situation. The goal here isn't perfection, it's progress. Every EV and FEV on Canadian roads is a step in the right direction. Now, before we wrap up, let's talk about some uniquely Canadian consideration that you need to factor into your decision. Let's not sugarcoat it. Cold weather affects EV range. At minus 20 to minus 30, you could see the range drop by 30 to 40%. Maybe less, maybe more. Batteries don't perform as well in extreme cold, and you're using energy to heat the cabin. But here's the thing. This is manageable. Many modern EVs have battery thermal management systems. You can preheat your vehicle while it's still plugged in, so you're not using battery power for heating. And realistically, if you're charging at home every night, even with reduced winter range, you're probably still fine for daily driving. Just don't buy an EV with 250 kilometers of summer range and expect comfortably road trip across Saskatchewan in January. Know your winter range reality. We Canadians, we're used to plugging our vehicles in winter. Well, guess what? You're already trained for EV ownership. The difference is, instead of just warming your engine, you're actually fueling your vehicle. Now, Canada's charging network is growing, but it's not uniform. Urban areas, especially in BC, Quebec, and Southern Ontario, they have decent charging networks. But if you live in rural Manitoba, it's turning into more northern Manitoba, northern Ontario, or anywhere in the territories, your options are much more limited. Check out PlugShare or ChargeHub apps to see what charging infrastructure exists along your regular routes before you commit to a BEV. If the infrastructure isn't there yet, a PHEV might be the smarter choice. And try to do your own homework with this. The dealerships, I've heard all sorts of interesting stories that they tell people. So vehicle availability and wait times. This is frustrating, but it's our reality. Some EVs have wait times of 6 months to over a year in Canada. If you need a vehicle, that might push you toward whatever's actually available rather than your first choice. Factor this into your planning. For cold weather features, look for EVs with heat pumps rather than resistive heating. They're much more efficient in cold weather. Also consider heated seats and heated steering wheel. These use way less energy than heating the whole cabin and keep you comfortable while preserving range. What I like to tell people, warm butt and warm hands, you're usually feeling pretty warm. You don't need the heat on as high. Now, I know we've covered a ton of information today, and honestly it can be overwhelming. There are so many variables: your driving patterns, your budget, available incentives, vehicle options, charging solutions. It's a lot to figure out on your own. And that's actually something I want to talk to you about. I've been getting a lot of questions from listeners and other people around about their specific situations. James, I live in rural Manitoba and drive 100 kilometers round trip for work. What should I get? I need to tow a camper but want to go electric. Is that possible? My electric panel is full and old. Can I still charge an EV at home? These are great questions, but they're so specific to individual circumstances that it's hard to give good answers in a general podcast format. So here's what I'm doing. I'm now offering consulting services to help people navigate their EV journey. Whether you're trying to figure out which EV or PHEV is right for your specific situation, you need help understanding your home charging options and getting a charging solution set up, or you just want someone to walk you through all the EV technology and answer your questions, I'm here to help. We can help analyze your actual driving patterns and needs, match you with the right vehicle options available in Canada, help you understand and apply for all available incentives, connect you with qualified electricians or home charging installers for your home charging installation. Explain the technology in plain language without all the jargon from the dealerships. Support you through the buying process and answer questions as they come up. Think of it as having an EV guide who's been through this, who understands the Canadian market, and who's on your side. Not trying to sell you a specific brand or model, just helping you make the best decision for you. If you're interested in working together, shoot me an email at truenorthevpodcast@gmail.com and put EV Consulting in the subject line. We'll set up a time to chat about your situation and how I can help. All right, let's bring this home. Choosing the right electric vehicle is not about getting the longest range or the fanciest technology. It's about finding the vehicle that fits for your life, your budget, and your comfort level with the technology. Maybe that's a long-range Tesla Model 3 that you charge at home every night. Maybe it's a Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid that runs on electricity for your daily commute, but has gas backup for weekend adventures. Maybe it's a used Nissan Leaf that you picked up for $15,000 and use as a second vehicle for around town errands. All of these are valid choices. The most important thing is that you're making an informed decision based on your actual needs, not on fear, not on hype, and not on what some internet forum says you should do. Here are your key takeaways from today. 1. Analyze your real driving patterns. Most Canadians drive way less daily than they think. 2. Don't dismiss plug-in hybrids. They can be the perfect stepping stone and might meet 80 to 90% of your driving needs electrically. 3. Stack your incentive. Look at provincial, municipal, utility, and manufacturer incentives to maximize your savings, especially now that the federal program is paused. 4. Factor in total cost of ownership. Fuel and maintenance savings can offset the higher purchase price over time. 5. Test drive and talk to real owners. There's no substitute for actual experience. 6. Consider your charging reality, especially in winter and for long trips. 7. It's okay to start small or wait. This is a journey, not a race. Before I go, I have to give a shout out to someone who really knows what he's talking about when it comes to EVs. If you're not already listening to Bodhi's podcast, Kilowatt, you absolutely need to check it out. Seriously, Bodhi is way more knowledgeable than me. He digs deep into the technical stuff, he covers industry news, and he really knows his EVs inside and out. If you want to level up your EV knowledge, Kilowatt is essential listening. I learn something new every time I tune in. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of True North EV. Before you go, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. It really helps other EV enthusiasts find our show. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover, send your suggestions. The show's for you and me, and we're all learning this together. I also want to thank you guys for taking the time. I'm not feeling super great, so I'm sure my voice is just about done, even on air here. So thank you, and hopefully when I talk to you in the next couple of weeks, it will be much better. Have a good one.